rejection sucks. Like when I think about rejection, I feel like it's that feeling of getting punched in the stomach and you want to start crying, but you can't because normally we're surrounded by a bunch of people, or we're surrounded by our parents, or we're surrounded by family members, and we cannot just start crying or run out of the room. So we're surrounded by family members. There's a time when we can't just run out of the room, but it's that feeling that you feel so unloved. So I call that rejection. My name's Sheila Stutzman and I'm a pastor. And I teach people about rejection and how it affects us. We can even feel rejected from as early as the womb. I've met people that their parents told them they wish they were never born. I've met people that they've been passed around from family member to family member, even in foster homes, because nobody wants them. That is rejection. Any adopted child will end up having this thing inside of them, wondering who they are and why they weren't wanted. That is rejection. And rejection just is terrible. Actually, God never created us to feel rejection. Our bodies here, these bodies were never meant to house rejection and fear and unforgiveness. So rejection affects us. And when we've suffered from rejection, we have three main ways that we respond to it. We have an aggressive response, or we have a response where we agree with the rejection, or we find ourselves trying to prove that we're okay. And so we try to be perfect and we try to do everything good so that someone will finally not reject us. But either way, we have that rejection, and it creates pain. And so we've heard about kids cutting themselves. When I was a teenager, I actually used to mutilate my fingernails. It sounds crazy, but I would create a hole with a knife and I would just slowly peel off this whole layer of my fingernail, and it would just be the raw nail bed. And I was creating a wound that I could take care of. So back then I wasn't cutting myself, but I was mutilating my fingernails. And I would create this wound that I could take care of because I didn't know what to do with the pain that was inside of me. So when I think about that pain, I remember hearing a story once of a young man, and his mom was really sick, so she didn't get him to a lot of his baseball practices. He was at an assembly, and everyone's at the assembly, and all these kids are around him. And one of the teachers down in the middle of the gym said, "Everyone stand up that's on the baseball team." And so he stands up. He's in middle school. He stands up, and someone behind him says, "You never even come to practice. Sit down." That is rejection. When I think of those little things that happen, when a parent grabs something from you and says, "Let me do it myself," and you feel rejected. When your parents divorce, or a mom or a dad are chasing after boyfriends or girlfriends, we end up feeling rejected. There's so many different scenarios where we would feel rejected. And when I think of rejection, when I say that we have a tendency to try to prove we're okay, what those people do is they end up thinking, "Oh, you didn't want me? Okay, well, I'm going to prove I'm okay." And so they try to get the best grades and they try to be the best kid and do everything that so someone could pat them on the back and say, "Oh, we're so glad you were born." When I think of the person that agrees with the rejection, those are people that would be rejected and then think, "I'm rejected because I'm nothing." So they agree with the rejection, and actually they can start believing the lie that they're all alone. And when I say that someone becomes aggressive, is we can suffer from rejection and then we end up feeling like no one wanted me. You're rejecting me. Well, then you're all going to pay. And we just get so angry. And that anger just festers inside. And I want you to know that anger is a secondary emotion. There's something that happens first, and then the anger comes. And so I believe rejection linked with unforgiveness, oftentimes when we're rejected from people, we have that unforgiveness and that pain and that hurt. And we need to forgive. But that rejection can be healed. In my message, I had a lot of rejection. That was my big revelation from Jesus, who ended up saving my soul, covering my sins. But Jesus was the one, the God who created me was the one who could take that pain and take that rejection and take that hurt. So I want to share that message, because out of all my pain and hurt and mutilating my fingernails and feeling alone, I tried to kill myself when I was 16. And I want people to know that's not the answer. That wasn't the answer to the pain. That wasn't the answer to the lie that I was all alone. I was never alone. But rejection sucks. It's just terrible. So there's a story when I was in high school. I was in ninth grade. And I was sitting there. You know how memories are? Like, sometimes it seems like there's 100 people there, but there's not 100 people there. There's probably only about 15 or 10 even, but it's just the way memories work. And so I'm there with my friends. We're next to the gym. Well, I think they're my friends. And all of a sudden these boys come, about 4 or 5 guys, they come, and I have this scarf on, and I always wanted to dress nice. And so they grab the scarf from one end and it rips around my neck, and they run into the boys' bathroom. So I want to run after them. I actually want to start crying because they've taken my scarf and I can do nothing about it. Of course, all the people that I think are my friends, they're all laughing. But what that does to me is I just feel paralyzed in the moment. I want to start crying. I want to run home, but you can't. And so when I talk about rejection, that's rejection. It's that terrible feeling when you feel unloved, you feel trapped, like someone's punched you in the stomach and you can do nothing about it. So they run into the bathroom. I can't do anything about it, so I'm just embarrassed. I'm actually humiliated. So there's some things that we go through. We have the 3 H's. It's horrors that we go through, humiliations, and hurts. So what happens, they go into the bathroom and I'm just standing there feeling embarrassed and humiliated. They come out of the bathroom with my scarf and they're dragging it along the ground. It is soaking wet. And they bring it out and they say that they put it in urine. Oh, talk about, I just want to start crying. I am so angry. I went now from hurt and embarrassed, want to cry, to now I just feel so angry and there's still nothing I can do about it. You know, the interesting thing about memories is that's like locked in time. I actually don't remember. Did I go to the office? Did I get a bag? Did I take my scarf home? I don't remember. Because the thing that caused the damage, the thing that would be the trauma, was that moment that they hurt me. It was an injustice. It was terrible for me. Now, did anyone else care? No, they probably would never remember it. Honestly, I didn't remember it either. It wasn't until I asked the Lord to show me something I needed to forgive, something that had hurt me. And He brings it to my conscious mind. And I remember, and I could forgive. Okay, so one of the things that happens with rejection is we have 3 main ways that we respond to rejection. So when we feel rejected, which can be for numerous reasons, like there's even babies in the womb that can feel rejected. We can be affected even in the womb. Maybe it wasn't good timing that our parents got pregnant with us. Maybe the words in the womb that were said could affect us. A manner of birth, if someone's adopted, there can be rejection in the family home. There can be things in later life. There can be things at school for sure, and things with friends. What happens is we need healing from those memories, because those memories are in there. Actually, scientists would tell you that all the memories from the time you were conceived are in there. They're not in our conscious mind, but we remember everything. Well, what the Lord wants to do is He wants to help us to forgive, and He wants to help us be healed. At our church, we call that inner healing, where it's really the healing of memories. So those memories in the counseling world today, they would call it complex trauma, and there's things that we've all been through. But Jesus wants to heal us. And I really believe that Jesus is the only one, the author of life is the only one that can take those hurts from my heart, replace that rejection with His love. And so we have lots of memories where people have went through, they've forgiven. Usually in our prayer ministry that we do when we do inner healing, someone has to forgive someone, because those things that happen that cause, the horrors that we've been through, the humiliations and the hurts, it's created an opening and a hurt. And so that needs healed. It's kind of like an infection. that just keeps festering. And unforgiveness is funny because we think sometimes that we are hurting the other person, but we're actually not doing anything to them. We're actually hurting ourselves. So unforgiveness, people have said, is like mixing up a poison for your enemies and then drinking it yourself. And that's what unforgiveness does. So when we've been hurt by our parents, one of the instances is maybe your parents got divorced. That's of course going to hurt you. That's of course going to cause fear. But when they got divorced, maybe they moved on to have a girlfriend or boyfriend, and then that hurts you because the way God created is we'd have the two parents and they would be focused and they would love each other and they would have a home, a protection. And some of us didn't have that. But what God created is we would have that home, we'd have those parents that were focused. And so sometimes we don't have parents that are focused on us. If they got divorced, now they're focused on their girlfriends or boyfriends, and that can cause a rejection. Either way, we need to forgive. And our parents, I always joke that our parents are the first flawed humans that we meet. And I don't think they even mean to hurt us. Different things can happen. I've heard stories where kids will clean the whole house and they have it all perfect. And so when their parents come home, they did it and they got it all clean, and then their parents maybe are stressed out and they don't notice. That is even a rejection. That's something that can hurt our heart and cause disappointment. So Jesus wants to heal us and we need to forgive. So when we forgive, like that memory of the boys hurting me and taking my scar, that day I said, Lord, show me who I need to forgive. And that memory came to my mind. I did not consciously remember that memory. I think that memory hurt me so much. I had been through enough in my life. So by the time that happened, it was just another terrible thing that happened, someone rejecting me. So I tucked it like really far as I could tuck it, to never think about that again, because who wants to think about rejection? Who wants to go back there? But sometimes we need to go there. We're like in pain and maybe angry and we don't understand it, but we need to just go there. We need to let the Lord heal us and help us. And so a model prayer, one of the things I said that day with those young men is I said, Lord Jesus, I choose to forgive them. I actually don't even remember who they were, but I choose to forgive them for taking my scar, for embarrassing me, because it made me feel scared. It made me feel angry. It made me feel unloved. And I choose to release them from my hurt, my bitterness, my judgment, and my resentment. And I bless those young men, and I ask you to bless them. And that is a simple model of forgiving. Jesus said that we must forgive from our heart. And I realize sometimes we want to forgive. We even try to forgive, but we need to forgive from our heart, which will include giving him our feelings and emotions. And then it's released. And that day, something crazy happened because I was always a really angry person. And just to remind you, I'm sure you know, but anger is a secondary emotion. There's something that happens first before we're angry. And I believe that thing is rejection. So I was very angry, but what happened that day when I forgave those young men, at the end of it, I felt joyful. And I thought, that's crazy. I'm literally going back and remembering this thing that hurt me so much, that was so embarrassing, whatever. And all of a sudden at the end of it, when I released them, I felt joyful. So I just started asking him about more people I needed to forgive and started forgiving. And every time, if we think about a wall being built up, especially a wall around us, we all, want to protect ourselves. So we build this wall. But when I forgave them, it was like I was removing a brick from the wall and I literally felt lighter. And it took away some of that anger. One of the things that happened in my life is when I was 16 years old, I tried to kill myself and I took some pills and I had to go to a mental institution for a few days. But I just was so angry and I always felt that I was alone. And so that's one of the lies that we can believe, is that we're so alone. And then suicide, just these suicidal thoughts. And whenever I'd feel alone, I would start to feel this feeling like everyone would be better off without you. Nobody wants you anyway. But that wasn't true. But I believed that lie. But as I started to forgive, it released joy. And I didn't struggle anymore with those feelings of severe anger and those feelings of being alone and suicide. So God of the universe came down in the form of a man to die for us. So he made a way for us to be right for the Father. The blood of Jesus cleanses us of all sin. So we all have that opportunity because he loves us. The Bible says that this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. One of the things we do at our church is we do something called the prayer ministry. We just call it the prayer ministry. And it is actually our ministry for inner healing of memories, which I already told you on. One of the memories that someone shared one time is that his mom was really sick when he was young, and he was on this baseball team. But he couldn't go to many practices because his mom was sick and his dad was working. But he was at this assembly, and a teacher down on the floor in the middle of the gym said, "Hey, everybody stand up that's on the baseball team." Well, he stood up along with everyone else that was on the baseball team. But when he stood up, another person behind him said, "Sit down. You don't even go to the practices." You know that terrible feeling? You know what he did? He sat down as fast as he could. It's that terrible feeling. It's a memory locked in time of someone hurting you, of someone saying something that would like crush you and embarrass you and cause you pain. So what happened is we, with the help of Jesus, created this prayer ministry where we can go in and Jesus can show memories, much like my memory with the scar, and he can heal us, heal our heart. Because every time those things happen, whether they happen with parents, whether they happen with family members, whether they happen with teachers or friends, whatever happens, it like fractures. It's like your heart that's whole, like just fractures, and there's pain and there's hurt. And Jesus wants to come and heal those fractures so that our heart could be whole again. And we would experience his love. And his love doesn't just save us from our sin. His love heals our heart. And we're able to love because we get all that pain and hurt out, and we're able to love people the way that we've been loved.